Welcome back to our community building series. We have another incredible guest for you. This woman, she is a networking queen, and you are going to love, love, love her. Her and I have just been able to connect just briefly. We're actually in a very the same growth container. We're connected with a lot of different people, which is so fun. And I have just seen her stuff and know that she's an incredible networker, an incredible community builder. So I'm really excited to bring her to you guys. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you.
I know, me too. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's going to be so fun. So Sarah, she's the founder of Sarah Jean Co. She has become a queen of networking from building her previous fitness business to a global platform using networking as a main lead generator, but also from helping hundreds of business owners generate hundreds of thousands of dollars through quality connections, introductions, and referrals. Everybody listening, she's speaking our language, right? So lean in, pay attention, get your notes. Sarah has created groundbreaking networking strategy that dives deep into the nuances of how you show up in meetings and events so that you can increase the number of quality leads that you're getting, but in a way that always keeps people above profit. Her knowledge in psychology and background in counseling, mixed with her ability to connect people to each other and her ability to challenge the status quo and shift others' perspectives, makes her your new favorite networking partner. You can also catch Sarah at one of her many networking events happening all the time, either virtually and in person. Sarah, I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yes, I love talking to other people who do networking, right? Because it's like this conversation is going to be full of gold, like.
Totally.
And I'm the strategy friend. Like, grab a piece of paper and a pen because this is like we're gonna dive into it. Like, I'm so excited.
I love this. Same. I'm like bubbling on the inside. I'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory because we typically don't get good at things like this without having been really bad at them.
That part.
Right?
Well, I think too, this is interesting because this specific industry, no one does what I do. Like, no one teaches networking to the nuance that I do. So, like, really trying to figure it all out and navigating it through piecemealing all these like different things and kind of taking advice for other things, but applying it to networking, or a lot of trial and error of like spending a lot of time with a group that actually wasn't getting me anywhere, or, going into spaces one after the other where I'm like, why do I hate this so much? Yeah. And not being able to figure out why. And a lot of people talk about networking from the general marketing standpoint, like, oh yeah, you should be networking. We all know that, right? And then if anyone teaches networking, they really only teach the 30-second elevator pitch. So it's something that's so new to talk about from a strategy standpoint. But how I got here was back in 2019, I ended up in Tampa, Florida at this like 3-day conference. I honestly had no idea what I signed up for. The girl hosting the event, her name is Jenna Corelli. She was my business coach at the time, and I just loved her. So when she was like, I'm doing this event, I'm like, okay, here's my money. Like, I don't have any follow-up questions, right? I was like, I will be there. So I get my plane ticket. I find some, random roommate in the Facebook group, and I like just show up. And when I got there and I left that weekend with that level of connection with people that like, okay, cool, we met online, but we would have never had that depth of a connection from just being on Instagram. And then it was like, okay, here's a podcast interview. Here's someone pitching me to be in a book. Here is a paying client. Here's an invitation to another event. That's actually how I got in Rachel Luna's world, because Rachel was there and then her event was coming up later. So now I'm like, okay, cool. I would have never heard about that event. And then it's had this snowball effect of getting me into new circles and getting me into new spaces. And I was like, why am I not doing this all the time? Like, this is silly. So I got home. Right. I was like, wait a minute. Why? I've been sleeping on this. Like, where have I been? And I go home and I'm like, okay, I want to be doing this every single week. So I join a local networking group that met every single week. And then I went into monthly groups. And then I went into just like all these different kinds of events and spaces and all these things. So from February of 19 to August of 19, I think it actually might have been like July. So really not that long of a time frame. I was able to go 100% self-employed, and I tripled my income within the first month of going self-employed. And really the only thing that changed was that I was networking. I was getting myself out there. I was building through word of mouth, through referrals, through introductions. So like I'm okay at social media. I'm okay with email funnels. I'm okay with messaging and copywriting. Like as much as entrepreneurs are, right? Like we have to figure it out to some extent, but I'm not an expert at any of the above. What I'm an expert at is I can build rapport with people very, very quickly in a way where you genuinely know that you're my friend as soon as you meet me. Like this is not like, oh, I can make you think we're friends. No, we really are friends. Like you're my girl once you meet me, right? And then being able to say, we're not just friends, we're business partners. So let's be very, very clear that Charity and I are friends, but Charity and Sarah both need to grow a business. And if that's not what we're here to do, then you and I can go have our mimosas like after hours and not take work time. And that was where I really struggled because I would like these groups or these people as people, but I wasn't growing a business. So I really had to sit down and I looked at how many hours am I actually spending to be in this group? I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but when you have a weekly group, you're spending a minimum of 16 hours a month on that one group.
Right. Yeah. And what's the
That's
ROI?
exactly like that's not just an ROI from the 1 hour the meeting is, and it's not just an ROI from what you spend to be a member of the group. You now have to look at what is your hourly rate times how many hours you're actually spending in the group. So when I started looking at it like that, I was like, oh, damn. Like I'm not even close to getting my ROI. And then my superpower is self-awareness. So being able to say, okay, first I'm going to look at what I'm doing, right? Because it could be how I'm showing up. Audit all of that stuff first, see if I can maybe just adjust something, give it some time to see if it's working. So I did that to grow my fitness business. And when my fitness business felt misaligned and I was looking for what is the logical next thing, like where does it go from here? Networking was already happening behind the scenes. I just wasn't talking about it publicly. And when I started sharing, like, here's how to not suck at networking, people loved it. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like people actually want to hear this. Like, let's lean into that. And it has been so easy to book different like speaking engagements, interviews, different like workshops with other businesses because so many people want to learn how to be better at networking, but also like, okay, I'm networking all the time. I actually do need to be monetizing these efforts.
Yeah. I love that so much. It reminds me, and my audience listening, they've heard me say this a few times, but one of my favorite quotes is that when you do with intention what you have done by intuition, you will achieve acceleration. And I love that there was this point in your story where all of a sudden you're like, actually, like, I'm really good at this. This is a superpower of mine, is to network and to connect. And what would it look like if I started to do that with intention?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly for me how Business and Bubbly started. I'm such a connector. I don't know if you've ever done Gallup Strengths Finders at all. It's an incredible personality test, and it talks about like these 34 different strengths. And literally, my number one is connectedness. And so that is a divine connection that I have. Like it literally is my superpower, then to connect with people and to connect people to people and people to things and like people to resources and connect the dots and and it literally, and so it was like, okay, like that's my superpower, like how can I harness this? And then also as a someone that can also then see the strengths in other people, it's like, okay, how do we gather the gatherers and give these women who it is their superpower to connect people and give them the platform now to say, okay, like I'm a community builder. And I just love it so much. And I actually want to go back to what you were saying about the how you said you found yourself in certain rooms and you're like, oh, like I don't like this. And then in other rooms, you really thrived. I think this is actually a conversation that more people need to have. Because if we think about like back in the day in science of culture, right? Every community, every networking group, every area that you're in, it has a culture, right? And what do cultures do? It can sometimes seem like this intangible thing, but if you think back to science, it's culture grows things. And if you're plugged into a community, if you're plugged into a culture, if you're plugged into a networking group and what's growing, you're like, oh, like not such a fan of what's growing, or all of a sudden you're like, oh, I am like coming alive in this space. I am flourishing in this space. Like, hello, like that is a culture that you are thriving in and flourishing in, right? If a flower doesn't bloom, like you don't fix the flower, you fix the soil, you fix the environment. So what did it look like for you when you were like, oh, like I don't like this culture, like this thing that I'm in, this room that I'm in, it's like itchy, it's uncomfortable. It's like for me, it was like the bad 30-second stories and the salty salesman and the 30, here's my bad business card. And I was like, this is not my jam. So I completely the opposite. So I'd love to hear your story in figuring out what that looked like for you.
This is where it's hard to make it tangible because it really is just a feeling. Like alignment, if you could bottle it up and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. But it's like it's one of those things that's really hard to teach, but when you feel it, you know. And when you go into a space and you just don't like it, that's not enough to just say, well, I don't like it. We really have to figure out why, right? Because part of being strategic is knowing what works, what doesn't. Why is it working? Why is it not working? So that I can either keep doing what works and I can laser focus on what's actually working, or I need to know why I don't like it so that moving forward, I know what to look for in a group so I can stop wasting my time. Like if I know that I don't like free mingling events, I'm going to stop signing up to go to free mingling events. You know, like we have to figure out what it is about it. And there's a few different things that I look at is one, on a personal level, are we aligned? Like, do we have similar core values? Do we vibe when we're having a conversation? Like there is that organic chemistry factor to like, am I actually vibing with the people in this room? And am I excited to be around them? And am I feeling good about doing business with them, passing them referrals, right? Because they're thinking the same thing about me. If we're not vibing out, they're not going to be excited to send referrals. So there is that aspect to it. But then there's also the aspect of intentions and structure. So do we come into this space with similar intentions? If you're here to just pass me a business card, add me to an email list I didn't ask for, if you're just looking to sell me something, but I'm really looking for the longevity of outside referrals, long-term power partners, collaboration, our intentions are not aligned, and it's really going to be pretty short-lived how well we get along or how much we're able to help each other grow businesses, right? Because our approach is just totally different.
Yeah.
And the other part of it being the structure. So sometimes I'll go into a group where I love the people. Like we vibe on a personal level, we're aligned, we're there for similar intentions, but the structure of the meeting is messy, it's disorganized, it's a little too free-flowing, it's rambly. I will say that I'm a little bit more picky now that I host events so frequently. But if I go into an event where it's supposed to be structured and then the structure kind of flops, I'm like, okay, will I keep going back if I don't like the structure of the meeting? Right? Especially if I'm paying to be there, I will not pay for free mingling. If I'm going to pay to be in a room, I want it to be structured. I want it to be efficient. I want to know that I'm going to be able to like introduce myself to the room, be able to kind of feel out who else is here without having to go interrupt every single person's conversation in a free mingling space, which we really can't even do anyway, you know, but free mingling has its spot in the world too. So figuring out what is it that's not aligning with what I want, right? And then moving forward. So many people go to one networking group that they don't like and then like, well, screw networking, I hate it, it's terrible. No, it's not. It's like dating. You have to keep trying. You have to keep kissing a couple of frogs, okay? Until you find those people where you're aligned with them personally, but it's also leading to an ROI. Like I want to enjoy the people I'm around, but I also need it to be growing my business.
For sure. And I love that you're mentioning this because I think that there's a big difference in like when you know that you want to be intentional about the groups and the communities and the people that you're networking with. And right, it's like for us with Business and Bubbly, it's women in business. And it's not to exclude anybody. Like I have an incredible group of mom friends. I'm a mom. I love my babies. I love my family. It just is a different conversation that I have. And
Yeah.
so I get to actually show up in every facet of who I am, right? Like a diamond. Like I think that there's this actually like it's not sometimes it's not necessarily misalignment because misalignment means that there's disconnection compared to actually what does it look like to find the correct place where that facet of who I am can be fully expressed, where I don't have to dim like that aspect of myself to where that part can fully shine and fully come alive. It doesn't mean that I neglect or I'm misaligned in any other space compared to just that part of me gets really reflected and to be expressed in that area. Um, and so I love that what you're saying is like actually know what you're going into a group for, because that takes such intention. And I would love to kind of, what did you learn on what it looks like to network the wrong way? And what does it look like, or what have you learned to network in a really great and powerful way that gives that ROI that you're looking for?
You know what's funny is I've done the gambit of like icky, gross things in networking because I think it just is normal. It's the normal evolution of becoming a networker. But the interesting thing is I was not getting direct negative feedback from how I was showing up. What I'm really good at is in my psychology training, right? Being an addictions counselor, being able to understand human behavior, being able to understand what makes someone lean in versus tune out is actually where I started noticing. So watching other people's interactions, watching someone give their 30-second elevator pitch or their commercial, whatever you want to call it, since it's synonymous, right? But watching them give their 30-second intro and then watching other people's reactions. So I was learning about myself through watching in other people and getting feedback from other people. Like I'm the friend where you're so comfortable giving me your real raw feedback. And I love it. Okay. You can come at me. You can come complain. You can come be honest. You can come give me the real, the raw. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like I'm that friend that you can be totally open with, and people know that they feel safe being totally open. But what happens is by getting that real and raw feedback, I'm like, oh, okay. People don't like that particular approach. People don't like when you just add them to your newsletter just because they signed up for a coffee chat. Like there are these things that maybe I'm not getting that feedback on because they're coming to me about my own approach.
Yeah.
But I'm watching them interact with other people, and I'm using that ability of mine to watch other people and to learn what's making people interested versus not interested, right? And then just taking that and applying it. And I started really putting it together into when I started teaching it, it was like, okay, how do we kind of put this into like a curriculum? But I didn't really have it as a curriculum. It was just every single time I interacted with someone, every single time I went to a meeting, I was intaking that information of like, oh, that worked really well. People were nodding, people liked it versus she just gave her 30-second elevator pitch and people are snoozing.
Oh.
Like people are not interested at all. Or I can look at myself and say, why did I not just like that feeling in me where I'm like, like that did not land well with me at all. That 30-second elevator pitch just did not resonate. Why?
Yeah.
And being able to have that analytical side to it. So, you know, trust me, I've gone through the whole thing, right? Only networking with my ideal clients and like adding them to the newsletter list and like going into a networking space to sell, like who here is my next client, my next purchase, my next whatever. Like I've totally done those things, right? Or like taking email business cards and putting them onto an email list. I've done it because that's what we're being taught in some of these spaces. right? Like when you go into, you have like a mentor, or you have someone who's the leader of a group, or you go to a workshop, like that is what's being taught, to be clear, right? So it's like, you
Whatever.
try it.
Yeah.
Right, right. It's not being taught everywhere, but it is being taught, right? Just
Totally.
kind of like anything in sales. I mean, there's icky sales tactics being taught today in real time. Someone is teaching something that is so horrendous in sales, but the point is that it's still being taught.
Yeah.
So it's okay to go and try these things, but then you realize, like, okay, that doesn't align with who I am. Like, just taking people's business cards and putting them on an email list is not really serving me. So, like, what's the better option?
Yeah.
Right. And just being able to say, okay, how about I just offer it to them and then give them a chance to say yes or no. And if they say no, it's okay, because I don't want to bog down my email list with someone who doesn't want to be there anyway.
For sure.
You know, like, I don't know about you, but I pay by the contact number. So why would I fill my contact number to pay more money for people who don't even want to be there?
Totally. They're gonna unsubscribe after I've paid 20 bucks for
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, no, I love that. I want to go back to something that you said about kind of still on this. Okay, like I know I'm in this room and it doesn't feel super comfortable, or I know I'm in this room and this one feels good. I want to kind of bring up this space of yes and to both of those. And what are your thoughts on being in rooms where you are almost like this concept of being the dumbest person in the room? And you have now, right, you're in this like up level journey and you are like, oh, like I got to get in the room and I know I'm going to be so uncomfortable and it is going to be like expansive and it like some stuff is going to come up and like insecurities or my whatever past way of thinking or the habit that I had that I brought into this room that as I expand, I'm not going to be able to bring it in, right? I know it need other perspective into this next level of the next 6 figures or into 7 figures. And being okay with the rooms that you are uncomfortable with, because I actually believe so, like you, which I love. So we could totally geek out on all the things. I have a degree in psychology, and literally like human behavior and child development and connection was my jam, and did addiction studies as well. I have some really fun certifications in addiction studies.
Yeah.
But we could totally geek out on lots of things. And I love this because like I think there's almost this thing in society to where it's like only good vibes, which yes. And I actually think that when we can be in environments where we are either being the dumbest person in the room, where we are forced in a good way to grow and expand, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And I think that sometimes in that only good vibes type of a mentality, we miss out on actually the growth that can happen when we are uncomfortable, or when we are around people that like, oh, like I'm a little like itchy around this person, but what is that about me that's coming up around this person, and how
Mhm.
can I learn from that space? So I don't know, just kind of a conversation around this juxtaposition of the both and, I guess. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, you know what's so interesting is I think that we, as entrepreneurs, especially in the online space, we've moved into this world where everyone wants to be aligned all the time and everyone wants it to be easy all the time. And this might be a controversial opinion. I just don't believe that. It's not my goal to be aligned and in ease all the time. It's just not what entrepreneurship is. If you were constantly in ease and able to be in your soft feminine era, and everything was aligned and everything came to you so easily, then everyone would be able to be an entrepreneur, right? And it's like when I hear people talk about they only do things that are in alignment with them, I think that one, there is a built-in privilege to that, because not all of us can just only operate in alignment, right? Sometimes it really is, if this is going to help me grow, then I need to be there. Even if it's not in alignment, if it's good for my business, then maybe I just need to be there. Or sometimes I'm going to be in a season where I need to hustle more. Sometimes I'm going to be in a season where I am in my masculine energy and I can't be my soft feminine, right? And I think that to acknowledge that it's okay to not always feel like you're in perfect alignment, to not always feel like it's easy. Now, I'm not saying you should be struggling 24/7, and entrepreneurship is meant to be hard all the time, but it is an ebb and a flow. There are going to be seasons where it's a little bit harder. Now, how that applies to networking is if you go into a group where it is hard, it doesn't feel totally aligned, or you might not feel comfortable. You're not meant to feel comfortable all the time, right? Like there is such a thing as healthy struggle, if you will, or healthy growing pains, where you're getting yourself uncomfortable, not to the point of detriment, but you're getting yourself uncomfortable to the point of growth.
Yeah, that's
And it just is a part of it. If I always feel comfortable in networking, I'm doing something wrong. I should not always feel comfortable, right? Because I should be meeting new people. I should be going into spaces where maybe I'm not at the level everyone else is yet, right? Like I should be getting myself into those spaces. Now, I shouldn't go into a space where I'm so anxious that I have physical symptoms for the next 3 months. Okay, like totally different story, right?
yeah.
And even here's a great story, a great example. I went to this group. It was a bunch of older ladies who are from the town where I'm at. They grew up here, they're from here, they come from old money, like generations of money, and they're all the same demographic, right? And they're all from here. So it's very like cliquey feeling to outside people. I hear that all the time. I just don't care. I'm like, cool, I don't care if you're a clique, I'm coming in, right? Like I want to be here too. So I get invited into the space. I was wearing an outfit that to me was pretty neutral. I mean, it was an all black, like whatever. I was wearing black business pants with like a lacy bodysuit, but it was not see-through, like no nips were out, like it was to me pretty neutral. So anyway, so at the end of the meeting, I go to say thank you to the girl who's running the meeting. And she says to the girl next to her, she goes, will you just look at her? And I thought it was like her complimenting me, like, oh, look how beautiful she is. And I was like, oh, thank you. And the girl next to her was like, yeah, I wish I could wear that to work. Like how unprofessional, and just like giving me these looks the whole time I was speaking. Like I'm very attuned to the looks that you're giving me, right? And the unhealed part of me that what has like that sisterhood wound of like the haters, the women who, are not empowering other women, wanted to be like, I'm never coming back to this group because it's misaligned. But the healed version of me that is a smart businesswoman is like, you know what? These are really good ladies to be connected to. And that is one single person that doesn't like me. So tough turtles that you don't like me, I'm coming back, right? Because I have to look at the bigger picture of, it might be a little uncomfortable to be around her, but here's 10 other women who didn't throw shade at me and didn't hate on me. And at the end of the day, they are very well connected to the community. Like at the end of the day, they are good people to be connected to.
Yeah.
So I think that in how I kind of approach it is, I'm not going to go every single month. I'm not going to go out of my way to spend time with them. I'm not going to block my calendar and skip other events that I like better to go to their events. But if I'm around, and maybe every other month, maybe every 3 months, I will make an effort to go.
Yeah.
I might show up a little less frequently because I'm going to save my time, energy, and money for groups that I actually enjoy being at. But because I know that's a group that will grow myself and my business, then yeah. Like sometimes there's you just have to suck it up, and weighing the options. Now, if the whole group was throwing shade and hating on me, I probably wouldn't go back. Because why? Right? If they're all hating on me, they're probably not going to help me grow too much. They're just going to make me feel like crap about myself, right? So I think it's a lot of like really analyzing what's happening.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love that you made that decision of not letting the one person spoil it for the whole thing, and that you had the awareness to be able to make the decision and, oh, okay, like this part of that hurt part of me, which is a real thing. I know a lot of us have had those sisterhood wounds. A lot of us have been hurt by women in the past. And gosh, but I actually want to make this decision from this healed version of me. And I just love that. This is so much about just who you are and the work that you've done and the rooms that you are willing to put yourself in and the grace that you are able to give people. Cause I think that's such a beautiful way, just say, oh, okay. Like, I see you, like that woman that hurt you or that judged you, or it's like, oh, okay, like I see you. And that's okay. Like I'm still going to show up anyways. Like so beautiful. So when it comes to networking, what would you say are some ways to make really great connections?
I think that, but my word for 2023 is diversification, right? So when we hear diversity, especially in people, we think race and culture. But outside of that, because it is included in what I'm talking about, but in addition to that, how are you showing up in different industries, different structures of meetings, online versus in person, free versus paid, women only versus men and women? Like really getting in front of a variety of different audiences and going to a variety of different meetings and events allows for you to connect in a way that you weren't expecting to connect, and like being open to expected and unexpected opportunities. Because when we really stick to just one way, we're only keeping ourselves open to expected opportunities. Where when you go to, for example, I'm not in real estate, but if I go to a real estate mixer, I'm opening myself to unexpected opportunities because I'm not in real estate, and just really diversifying who you're talking to allows for new connections to find you in such it's almost like I find it fun. You know what I mean? Like, wow, I would have never guessed that you and I would have had this collaboration. I would have never guessed that you and I could write a book together, that we could, co-host this event together. I wasn't even looking to do that thing that you came to me with, but like, yes, like that's so fun. Let's do it. And then being someone who is more valuable than anything to them, like showing up in that energy of how can I support you? And I think a lot of people say they support their referral partners, but that self-awareness isn't always there, and it's not always balanced. Like the people who think that they're showing up in support of their referral partners and they're really not, but their hand's always out. Like, don't be that person. You know what I mean? You're really going to struggle to make good connections if you're the person that is showing up with your hand out all the time, but then you're not showing up for them. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm so well connected that I'm feeling more and more of that, where people's hands are always out. So I have to be a little bit more vigilant about whose hand is out, right? And is there really a balance in this relationship? Is this relationship really mutually beneficial? So when you're going to someone, it doesn't matter what level they're at. It doesn't matter what level you're at. When you go to someone saying like, how can I make this mutually beneficial? How can I really stand out from the rest of these people who have their hands out, who are trying to leech, who are trying to take advantage of the fact that they have a big following, that they make a lot of money, that they're well connected to celebrities, whatever it is, right? How can I stand out again amongst all these other people that they're connecting with? And it's by adding value. How can you show up for them, right? How can you make it to where it's mutually beneficial? And some people psych themselves out by not knowing like how they can support. I don't ever think about how I can support that person before I ask them. So like, hey, like, what are you working on? How can I support you? Is there someone you're looking to connect to? Are you looking to go to different events? Are you looking for an accountability partner? Like, do you want to just co-work a couple of times a week? Like, what are you looking to do? And how can I support you in that? But not being the person who's like, well, listen, I'm too busy to promote your event, but like, when are you going to promote mine?
Yeah.
That real time happened to me. And it's like, that is such an icky feeling for the person you're talking to. And you just have to be hyper vigilant of how are you showing up for other people and making sure that you're not building a brand for yourself that is your hand is always out, but you're never serving.
Yeah.
Because that is so detrimental to building good connections. It's so detrimental to receiving referrals. Like you're never going to feel like your connections are building or that they're high quality or high producing if you're the leech.
Yeah.
And that's a hard truth to admit. Like if you're right now feeling like, okay, I'm the leech. Like if you're listening to Charity and I and you're feeling like, oh, I think I might be the leech. It's okay. Forgive yourself, move on, but then figure out like, how can you change that? How can you change your approach? Right? Kind of like I said a few minutes ago, we've all done it. We have all done it. It's okay. You kind of just like bless and release yourself, right? Of like, okay, I've been a little leechy. How can I turn that around and just shoot a couple of messages to the people who have supported you the most, and don't ask for anything. Just say, how can I support you?
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't benefit yourself at all, right? Supporting someone is not, oh, well, I'll give value when you have me on your podcast. Come on. Like, that's not supporting them, okay? Like, ask them, like, oh, I would love to share your podcast regardless if you have me on it or not. I would love to download it, give you a review. That is true support.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. Well, Sarah, I'm sure people are going to want to dive into your world and even plug into community. Now, it's funny, some women might be listening to this and they're like, Charity, like, why are you having another person on here that hosts networking events? And you guys, this is true abundance mentality. I'm okay that if what we're doing is not a fit for you, and here's another incredible woman that's building beautiful community, or if you want to be in both, or if you want to like be in none of them, like you get to choose. You are a powerful person that gets to make powerful decisions for you. And so I am highlighting women who are doing community really well and making and doing connection really well, because I think one of my firm beliefs, and you've heard me say this before, but over the next couple of years, especially with the influx of AI, one of the most valuable things, like it already is now, but I think a lot more people are going to be awakened to the fact that heart to heart, in person, like belly to belly, business to business connections are going to be the most valuable thing that we can cultivate and grow, because you're not going to know on Instagram if it's some whoever random whatever AI robot that's going to be talking to you and is trying to sell you some things, and whoever, like, so it's going to be it's the human to human that can never be replaced. And you are valuable. And what Sarah is doing is incredible. What we're doing is incredible. Like, this is an abundance mentality. And I want you to get planted and flourish where you're planted. And so that's why we're highlighting incredible women like this. So Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you, follow you, dive into your world, connect with you more?
Yes, I love it. So the easiest place to be is Instagram at Sarah Gemmell. If you put in like Sarah with an HGE, I'm like the first one that pops up. So super easy to find on Instagram. But I also have a free community on Facebook that is solely for networking, referrals, collaborations. It is nothing like any other Facebook group you're in. It really is focused in like, where can I go to different events? Where can I get connected to referral partners? I'm looking for someone to help me with market research. So that is a really, really great free community. It's called Activate. But when you go to my Instagram, it's just linked. So Instagram is the easiest place to be. And I will say that networking is not or. It really is and. Like, once I have a business coach, I have a business coach for the next however many weeks or months. Like, I'm not looking for another one. But in networking, who do you know that goes to just one networking event? Like, my networking events are structured so different than Charities, and they happen at different days and times, and they happen in different locations. Like, it is very much end, which I absolutely love. And it's like, if you're in Boise, go to the summit. If you're in Atlanta, come hang out with me, and it's like, if you're virtual, we'll figure it out. Like, Business and Bubbly has multiple chapters. Mine right now does not. So if you are not in my area and you want to come to an in-person monthly meetup, it's not going to be mine yet. Yeah. But that's what I love about networking, is it really is end, because we just talked about diversification. You should be going to different structures and different schedules and different locations and in-person and virtual. So I love collaborating with other networking hosts.
I love it. Well, Sarah, it's been so fun to connect with you. And even like your name, Gem, I just feel like you are such a gem. And it speaks to part of your story of the stuff that you've been through. Like, you've been able to dig out like the worth and the gold, and stand strong in who you are so that you can just shine. And it's been so fun to just be connected with you. I look forward to staying connected with you. Thank you for your time and for being here on the podcast.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope it brought some value and some fun into your business and life. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and even share the episode with a fellow business bestie who you know will love it. It helps us continue to attract top-level guests and reach more and more women who are on their journey in business just like you. Remember that when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Cheers to your success.